I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Ex-Wife Podcast, episode number 158, How Porn Affects Your Brain. I used to think of myself as the wife of a porn addict, but I do not think of myself that way anymore, and you don't have to either. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you can stop living your life around your husband's pornography addiction. I am going to teach you how to stop being the victim and how to conquer his pornography addiction, even if he never does. I'm Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach, and I am a member of the LDS faith and the wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife.
Hello, everyone. This is Rob, and Jolene has asked me to do a special podcast today for her and for all of you. So I'm excited to do this. She asked me just a little while ago, and she said, I don't even want to know what you're going to talk about or what you're going to say. Just do it. So that's what this is. So surprise to everybody and to her. I'm not sure exactly what this is going to be titled, but it's How Porn Changed My Brain. And I wanted to offer this as a podcast just to get some more understanding. It's not necessarily for the men. It's not necessarily for the women either. But it's just kind of for myself, for sure, to kind of explain a little bit about the things that pornography changed in my brain and the work. I don't necessarily going to tell you about the work that I did, but it was all through coaching, some therapy, a lot of internal work to reprogram this, to rewrite how my brain responded, how my brain was affected. So that definitely took work. It didn't happen overnight. And even now, there's some little side effects that show up here and there where I have to catch and say, that's an old pattern. That's the old way my brain used to think. That's not how I am choosing to think. And then I just reroute it. It's very simple now. But how did porn change my brain? So the first one is it changed my reward system. The reward balance in my brain got all mixed up, right? So when I did something good, there's a reward, or I do something that benefits me, you can get a reward, and then there's a positive feeling that's associated afterwards. And with pornography use, those things got flip-flopped. What I mean is that a negative behavior was associated with a positive reward, a positive feel-good. And when that happened, other things like a positive behavior was associated with negative reward. So just the easiest example right there is pornography use, right? Where at one point in my life, looking or viewing pornography would have brought up a negative feeling for me in the sense of, didn't feel good about that, or I didn't want to look at that, or I felt mostly a negative response to it. When I was using pornography, that became easier and easier to have a positive emotion. Now, when I say positive emotion, it may be an emotion that I was completely unaware of. It just felt good. Okay, so when that gets mixed up, it can get mixed up with normal interactions outside of pornography use. And this is so subtle that it is hard to see at first as the pornography user. It's hard to see that you may now be getting a positive reward from looking at another human being outside of the computer. Or it may be difficult to see that you're giving yourself a negative reward when you look at your spouse sexually and feel guilt because of the porn use or because of what you're doing around her. And so that's what I mean by maybe a positive that used to be just a complete positive being associated with a negative feeling. And it's kind of like, very basic brain training of however you want to take this, Pavlov's dog theory, right? Where they train a dog to eat food at the sound of a bell. They sound a bell and then they feed the dog until they train him so much that they don't even have to feed the dog. They sound the bell and he comes looking for food. And even if there's not food there, or he's salivating even without any food present, just by the ring of a bell. And so these subtle associations get all mixed up. Your reward system gets mixed up. A second thing how porn changed my brain was it made my brain very lazy, right? When I used to be able to delay gratification, or it was always seeking the immediate reward. And pornography is the immediate reward. And again, this is a subtle thing that isn't quite obvious as you begin to use pornography, but it trickles into other areas of your life, right? It's easier to give yourself the immediate reward of staying in bed instead of going to the gym. It's easier of giving yourself the immediate reward of ending work early instead of taking on that project. And while I'm at making this point, I do want to say that everybody's brains do this. We're all prone to it. It's not like pornography is unique with that. It's easy to switch up your reward systems, get them all mixed up. It's easy to let your brain get lazy. It doesn't have to be porn use that does it. Porn use is an amplifier of those tendencies of somebody's brain to delay, to seek immediate gratification, to not delay, to associate something that truly is negative for you, but associate it with a very positive feeling, right? That triple bacon cheeseburger, not the best thing to eat on a daily basis, but we've associated some really good positive feelings, whether that's through marketing or flavoring products, that it's associated in our brain as like a really great thing for us. I just want to point that out. And that goes with the rest of the points today, is that it's kind of like the chicken before the egg. Did I have these tendencies already in my life? Absolutely, everyone does, right? But pornography amplifies them to the point where they're spreading rapidly or affecting multiple areas of your life, right? So that's the first thing, how porn changed my brain, was that reward mix-up and having it be very lazy. The second thing is my relationship with Jolene. It changed our relationship. The way it changed it was also so subtle. I wouldn't have noticed it I didn't notice it until after I was porn free, and then I could see the difference. And that's what it took for me to see the difference between the relationship I had with Jolene, which was great, wonderful. I thought we felt great and connected, and we still had a good marriage. And it wasn't until I stopped using porn where I noticed and realized what porn did. And the biggest thing is that it takes away space. It creates a space in between. It created a space in between Jolene and I. That space was both emotional, those moments when I'd feel guilty or feel distracted. It's mental as well, right? Every moment that I'm thinking about when I'm going to watch porn is a moment that I'm not thinking about Jolene, is a moment I'm not thinking about our relationship. So just like time specific, it creates space between you. It creates a distance. It also, back to the first reward mix-up, creating those negative associations in marriage, right? When you're feeling guilty, when you're feeling shame, that creates an effect. It also creates the relationship with sexuality of a take relationship. Now, the way this is different and what a taking relationship is, or a take relationship, is when one party is using the relationship for just themselves, just for their emotional needs. Now, all relationships have give and take, right? There's sometimes where in some areas, one spouse will be taking a little bit more. And then in other areas, another spouse may be giving more based off of their strengths, based off of their weaknesses. So I'm not saying this is a wrong thing. I don't want to classify this as something that has to change or is wrong. But in pornography use, it begins to be easier to take from the relationship, because that's a habit that is being done with porn, meaning you're taking from porn. You're taking your emotional needs and having porn solve them. And that can be done as well in the relationship, not just physically, but I also mean physically, but also very emotionally, right? It's what are you doing for me? Look, my brain is trained that when I need something, I can go get it very quickly on the computer or on my phone, right? It's for me. It's for me. It serves me. And that can trickle into relationships of how is this just for me? And I just compare that to where I'm feeling now. And again, I'm not perfect at this, and every relationship has its give and takes. But where I show up emotionally whole and then give to the relationship. I'm not seeking something or have to have the relationship fill me up. And this is on both sides, right? We can go into a relationship expecting the other person to fill up the void and the hole in our hearts, emotionally speaking. And they can help that area, but we're responsible for our own ability to do that. Because when you can come into the relationship as a whole person, loving yourself, taking care of yourself, that's where you're from a place that you can give in that relationship. So this also affects in that relationship, which I've already mentioned, the physical or sexual relationship, right? And when porn affected our sex life, it was from that give-take idea. Rather than sex being a connection or a giving or a offering or an emotional bond, sex, and it wasn't every time or all the time, and that's why it's so subtle, but there's those moments when sex is a need from one partner to be fulfilled. A take. I need this from you at your expense to participate. Not when you're feeling up for it. I still need that, and then it's pushed to be taken. Now, I'm not talking abusive. I'm talking in a subtle, emotional, unspoken, right? Both people could be like, yeah, wonderful, this is great. But in the subtle, kind of subconscious, unspoken energy between the two people, between Jolene and I, right? The feeling of I need this, and it may not matter if you need it. That was very powerful to see the difference when my sexual drive or sexual energy is filled up with Jolene, what that feels and looks like and is different in our sexual relationship than before when I was looking at pornography, and a lot of my sexual desire and drive was being built up from porn use, right? That wasn't about her. That wasn't about us. That wasn't about, it just isn't, right? Now, I just want to caution anybody that's listening to this isn't, I'm not trained in sexual relationships. This isn't my strength, right? This isn't like, this is not professional advice. Little asterisk there. But I'm just pointing out, and I'm not saying what to do with this either, right? There's no advice for what to do with this. I'm just pointing out how this affected me, okay? And I saw how it affected in a take relationship sexually. So everybody is just gonna have to look at that themselves, right? Where they're at, what that means to them, and what they wanna do about that going forward. And there's lots of great resources. Obviously, Jolene's a great resource for the women. For the men, there's many great resources, and there's also great resources just for sexual relationships for couples who are working through this as either the effects of pornography or the after effects of pornography. And there's a lot of good help and resources. I'm like off the top of my head, you can message Jolene. Obviously, she's got a great connection and resources, but like Dr. Finlay's N5, an excellent resource. Next and last topic here, so we talked about how porn affects us, like my reward system affected my relationship with Jolene, and the biggest thing, it affected my relationship with myself. Porn affected my self-trust. It affected my self-trust that I would do what I say. With pornography, it takes over. And I could sit there and say, I will never watch this again. I am not going to watch this tonight. I will not watch it this weekend. I will do this. I'll be sober. I'll be clean from it for this long. And then I would mess up and not do what I said. And just in that fact alone, that eats away and decays your self-trust. Again, that trickles into other places in your life. I'm going to go get up. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up on time. That trust gets eroded. And then when self-trust gets eroded, either with it or as an effect, one's self-confidence begins to decay as well. Now, whether there was not self-confidence before or after porn use, that doesn't really matter. The porn will amplify it. Or if there was self-confidence before, the porn will erode that self-confidence. Because when you lose self-trust in yourself, your self-confidence also diminishes. And yeah, there can be external confidence, like, no, I'm still so good at this because look, I get all this external reward and validation from my work. Or I'm still so good at this because, my parents still think I'm awesome at this, right? You can still this like external confidence and borrow other people's confidence of you. But it's that internal self-confidence when you're by yourself alone, and the one that comes from within you, that weakens. That goes away. And then when that goes away, your relationship with yourself, beliefs begin to change about yourself. Once you might have thought yourself as a good guy, a loving husband, a good father, right? A good worker, a good member of church or your community. And these beliefs, when porn is used over and over and over again, and self-trust goes away, self-confidence gets eroded, beliefs begin, and then your identity begins to shift, right? There's lots of self-judgment that comes in. The bad husband, the bad father, the person that struggles, the person that is going to mess up again. These beliefs become deep and ingrained, and a lot of self-judgment shows up there. So that's my experience with porn, with how it affected my brain, how it affected my relationship with Jolene, how it affected the relationship with myself. And I really am offering this not to bring up other people's stuff or not to say, hey, you need to listen to this so that, you change all these things and look how much porn is messing up your life. No, that's not going to do anything. That's really not going to help because it's really hard to see these things when you're in it is one. And also you have to want to change for yourself. And that's something that is really hard to give to somebody, especially over a podcast, especially as hey, you need to change here, listen to this podcast. No, that's not what this podcast is for. Rather, it is for both the women and both the men, both parties, to just have a little bit more awareness of what may be going on, have a little bit more understanding, and to use that understanding not as a punishment, not as a hate yourself for it, not as a self-judgment, but to be able to say, okay, yes, I see this now. I can see that in myself. I can become aware of it and use tools and practice to have compassion for that on both sides. Have some non-judgment for that. Awareness can be a powerful force for change. So that's all this podcast is there for, and to just offer some hope that it doesn't have to stay that way. All right, everybody, thanks for letting me share with you my thoughts today.
Hello, my lady. I wrote a book, and I would love for you to read it. It's called The Not Enough Wife, and you can get it on Amazon today. This book is for any woman who has ever felt like she wasn't enough, not enough as a wife or as a mom, if she didn't have Instagram-worthy enough pictures, if she didn't throw Pinterest-worthy parties, if she ever felt like she was not enough, this is the book for her, and it's for you too. So go to Amazon today, go search up The Not Enough Wife by Jolene Wynn, and grab a copy for yourself and for all the women in your life. I hope you love it, and I can't wait to hear what you think.